"12 Mighty Orphans" is one of those films that just makes me so damn proud to be from North Texas. It's so incredible what this team and coaches did for the sport of football and their community. They fought against the naysayers who put them down, and their lives were deeply impacted by the lessons within. It really can make you realize a lot about yourself and how you can better serve your community and uplift those whose society often places in the shadows, essentially. What
Mhm.
has this film, its themes and characters, uncovered for you or helped you rediscover about yourself?
Well, to begin with, I found that working in Texas to be an extraordinary, disarming experience. I've often said to people, Texas has this image, don't mess with us, and I'm thinking,
Yeah.
okay, and they got a lot of macho going for them and so forth. But when you're there and you're working, it is the most disarming communities where you go, this sense of community. And it's like nothing is slipshod. The example that the whole world saw uh, in in recent history with these last storms. You have particularly the winter storm where everything's shut down, and even in the capital, but in some of the rural areas, it was death defying. And then the floods in Houston before that, and so forth. And this sense of community where people just they don't make any fuss about it. They don't brag about it. They just get about helping each other. And because they're on the scene, it's expected that this is what you do. And it's very, very community. And that was the sense that we had making the film. We rented a house for a couple of months in this community called Weatherford, which was where the orphanage that subbed for the one in Fort Worth that the film was about. This was a real working orphanage, and while we were there, they were more than welcoming to us. We used the indoor and outdoor facilities there that you saw on the screen, and they could not have been more generous or kind or disarming. And it's like I can't remember having more fun doing a picture than I did with this one. And it was like every day was a bigger surprise than the day before, and how they took care of us. And then you began to realize this is not a big deal. This is the way they take care of each other all the
Mhm.
time. And so that was the spirit that just we got into the rhythm of. And Ty Roberts, of course, is a Texan, and many of the people involved were Texans. A lot of the kids you saw in the film were Texans.
Mhm.
A lot of these kids had never been on a movie set before. They'd never seen a movie camera before. They'd never acted before. Many of them had never played football before. So they came together and they learned the game, and they learned to play with each other. And a lot of the stuff you're seeing, these kids are actually bashing into each other because weeks before we got there, they'd been practicing and running the plays and learning the script, and it was all by design, and they were committed to it. And by the time we got there were bumps and bruises and aches and pains, and they were already way ahead of us. They were as committed as you could possibly be. And in fact, when I saw the film, it was only then I realized that there were only a few occasions, maybe two or three times, where they actually used a stuntman for one of the other really hard hits or very integrated plays. But other than that, these were these kids, these guys actually doing the plays themselves. So they were an inspiration, and we just got behind them, and that they were so. If I had to pick a word that that emphasized the whole experience, it was generosity and joy. So it's
Mhm.
two words. I don't separate them, but it was a joyful experience. Every day was a new adventure, and I couldn't wait to get to the set, and was reluctant to go home. And it's the people, and that's what you said about community. It's community. It's that sense that you belong to something bigger than yourself, and yet you cannot not be the best you can be because of the community. They're counting on you, but then you learn to count on yourself for that reason. And it's about contributing even when you may not get what normally would be a reward afterward. The reward isn't doing it. You know, I've often said the old adage is so true. If what we believe is not costly, then we're left to question its value. And
Mhm.
I think that is a measure of what it means to be a member of a community and a contributing member. Uh, Boy, Texas has that in a giant way, the biggest heart. I can't say enough about how disarming uh, the experience was, and the people of Texas everywhere where we went, but particularly in Weatherford and in Fort Worth, how they just opened the doors and the fields and the people, and just one of the great experiences of my life. And I'm deeply grateful.
Oh, well, that's wonderful to hear. I can't wait
Want to
to.
hear how I really feel?
Yeah, yeah. I appreciate it all. It was really,
Oh,
really
I'm
nice.
sorry, I'm such a windbag, but I really have a deeply uh, profound love and respect for all those people that helped us make this film possible and were just so disarmingly pleasant and supportive.
Yeah,
More power to you.
I can tell. Um, Now, I'm sure this is a question that you're going to be tossed. That's going to be tossed your way all throughout the promotion of this film. But I can't dismiss how wonderful it was to see you and Robert Duvall share the screen space again. There was this twinkle in both of you when you exchanged words that just it really hit my heart. Like you both just like lit up. Could you tell me what it was like to be in that scene with him and what remains most true about Mr. Duvall that you still notice and admire about him today since your days on Apocalypse Now?
Well, you know, even before Apocalypse, before I worked with him, I was, I hate to use the term intimidated, but I was intimidated by him because he's that good an actor and he's that committed. Uh, and, and, you know, he's one of the most generous actors. I mean, he has this image sometimes of being a very, rough edged. Nothing could be further from the truth. He has an enormous heart and a sensitivity and a sense of humor. He's the biggest jokester. There were two of the great jokesters I ever worked with was he and Marlon Brando, and they mirrored each other. And they were just so disarming in their sense of humor. They're so down to earth, you know. And if anybody is playing the dozens, you know, they'll find a way to bring them back to earth quick. And Bobby was like that. He he's such a dear man, and the idea that I would get to do a scene with him, then I hadn't seen him in years, but I'd only worked with him that one time in Apocalypse, and it was just like I think you can see it on screen. Sometimes I'm just staring at him. I can't believe that I'm in a scene with him sometimes, and uh, that I didn't get cut out of the film still surprises me. But he has that generosity of spirit, but that enormous talent. And I think the only problem I ever had with him was the image I brought to him that
Mm.
that he dismissed. You know, yeah, I'm just a human being, just like you. Don't bring any images here because we're equal partners when we're in front of the camera, and that's where he was. And just that little scene we did, I think we shot it in a couple of hours there at this in the stadium watching the game it was such a joy. And I may have fallen out of character a little bit because I was so enamored of him, but I adore him. And I was so blessed to have a chance to work with him again because you never know when these opportunities are going to present themselves. So you say yes. And he was one of the reasons that I jumped right on when the offer came, when they said that Bobby was going to be in it.
Yeah.
And the only thing I asked was, will I be in a scene with him? And they said, of course. So yeah, that helped me make up my mind to go and do the project.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad it happened. I wanted to talk a little bit about your character, Doc Hall. I
Sure.
love how he takes time to entertain himself, whether you're making jokes about corn on the cob or repeating lines from Coach Russell. I think what was that one? Looks like Arthur Murray
Boy,
dance class.
Dancer.
And ain't it funny? Ain't it funny? Um, is there a process in place for making Doc Hall's language your own? Do you experiment with line delivery and things like that?
Well, I was given a lot of latitude. I must say, Ty Roberts is such a good man and a wonderful director, but he also loved the actors. I think that's real clear. And so we all were pleased to be in that community with him. But he was so generous, and he gave me a great latitude. And so Luke and I had uh, the opportunity to contribute things that were not always in the script, but became part of the script because we loved playing these particular characters, but we love working with each other. And Lucas is extremely generous actor. He's become one of my favorite actors, frankly. And I would look for another opportunity to work with him anytime. But he was so um, uh, sweet, really, and so generous in that I would suggest, I say, Luke, in this scene, maybe we could do this. I have this idea. Oh, let's hear it. And he would just run with it. And whatever I contributed most of the time, he got on board with. And Ty would say, wow, you guys just keep doing what you're doing. As long as we stayed within the boundaries of the characters
Mhm.
and didn't do things that they did not do or wouldn't do, it was fine. And I think that we generally reflected those characters. And at one time, we were both fans of Woody Guthrie, and at one point, we found out that the only song that had been recorded at that time was the one that we sang a few bars of in the film. If you ain't got the do re
Yeah.
mi, boys, if you ain't got the do re mi, that was the only song that was in the period of the film.
Mhm.
And although he wrote a lot of stuff that reflected the Woody Guthrie, I mean, about the Depression, but that was the first one in the period that we could use, and so we did. So he and I had a great love for the period, but it was these kids that we were given to kind of tutor. A lot of
Mhm.
them, as I say, were not actors. They weren't football players. They weren't uh, um, from out of Hollywood. They were all mostly from Texas, and they were so generous and sweet, and they were so open to what we were doing, and they just got behind us and just carried us through. And gosh, it's so rare because sometimes we get so we get so selfish, we get so frightened of our own image, and oh gosh, he got a bigger part than I, and oh she's and all these things. Our ego gets in the way of forming community. That happens a lot, but not in this film. We all felt the sense of community that the people we were playing felt
Mhm.
and expressed, and it went with everyone. Excuse me. It went with everybody in the film, from Ty, the director, and the production staff, and the assistant directors, and all of the people involved, and all the people who were former employees of the institution, or guys are still living who played on the team, or young men and women who were there during these periods who are still living, or their children or their grandchildren were here. Many of them came, and you see them in the stands. A lot of the people you're seeing on camera in background scenes, interior and exterior, are from the orphanage. You went through the orphanage and have gone on to lead extraordinary lives. Many of them became teachers, doctors, and many of them were heroes in World War II. Um, and their children and grandchildren are still making contributions. So we were just privileged, and we're smart enough to just realize that this is a ready-made community. Don't mess it up.
Yeah.
Don't mess with this community. This is a reflection of some very good and decent people at a very difficult time. It's a reflection of that state and that community and what they go through together. And it's an inspiration. And so I felt very fortunate. And, as I was saying earlier in an interview, I saw Ty and I said, when do we start part two? And he said, well, we're thinking about the series. So maybe we got that to look forward to.
Oh
Wouldn't
man,
that be something?
that would be something I'd watch. I'd watch that. Well, I'm pretty sure I went over my time, but thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. I really could sit here all day. I'm sorry I didn't put a West Wing poster behind me, but I
Uh,
do have a Departed poster. I could put up.
Thanks so much.
It's hard to believe when all we've known is hurt and loss. I look at you boys and I can honestly say I'm proud to be an orphan. And you'll feel the same way if you can believe in yourselves and believe in each other.